Hey guys, I'm Jax, and I just saw Saw X, the 10th film in the Saw franchise. Oh boy, does it feel good to say those words. I cannot believe Saw has made it to 10 films. It is such a wonderful, magnificent milestone that Jigsaw has made it to 10 films. But is this 10th film good? Is it worth going to see? Well, this film was about as good or as bad as you would imagine a 10th film in a horror franchise to be. I personally absolutely loved it. Is it the best film I've ever seen? Is it the best horror film I've ever seen this year? No and no. Is it even the best Saw film? Absolutely not, but I had an absolutely fun time in the cinema. If you're here for traps, you're getting traps. If you're here for Jigsaw, you're getting Jigsaw. But if you're not a fan of Saw, this film is not going to win you over. Like at all. It is completely gory and horrific and insane. Maybe not as convoluted in regards to the lore as some people might want. I know that I'm a big fan of the sequels of just convoluted, insane nonsense. And this is really more of a standalone movie. This film, and this isn't a spoiler, this is like straight off the bat, you know where it's set, like 2 minutes into the movie. This film is set between Saw 1 and Saw 2. And so we get the most time we've ever got in any of the movies with Tobin Bell as Jigsaw. John Kramer gets so much more screen time than in any other film. The most unique part of this film, because it's not the most unique film you ever see, it really is a Saw film, except the one aspect of it that feels very fresh and different is that it's more of a personal journey for John Kramer. The first act really takes its time. Like, I do think some people might be like, hey, that first 40 minutes could really been trimmed down and let's get to the Saw madness with the traps and the craziness and all the things that go on in a Saw film that we've come to expect. But I actually think this take, kind of taking this personal journey and really going through the experience with him, pays off when we get down into the back half of the movie and the final two acts, or the second and third acts of this movie. They really pay off and feel more powerful and more horrible and gruesome because we've kind of done a bit more of a slow burn than usual. Like, there's always kind of downtime in the Saw films outside of the traps, but this film really positions most of that at the front half of the film. And I found that to be a really unique, interesting way to kind of tackle a film that is the 10th film in the franchise. And I really like that. We get so much more personal, unique stuff from Jigsaw, and we get Tobin Bell's most personal and kind of vulnerable and emotional performance. His performance is unlike any of the other films we've ever seen. There are moments where they almost make him entirely sympathetic, like really sympathetic to the point where you're like, wait, hold on, Saw franchise. Is he a hero in this movie? Because there's a character at one point that is positioned in a way where you're like, are they the villain and is he the hero? I think maybe you've forgotten the other 9 films in this franchise. And it's not an issue, it's just kind of an interesting twist and turn on what the Saw franchise is. It doesn't like fully forget that Jigsaw is Jigsaw, but it does almost forget that he's Jigsaw at like a certain point. But it does it in a way that I found very interesting and very kind of, I was going to say thought-provoking. Thought-provoking is probably too strong of a word, but I found it kind of engaging and interesting and different. I think that's the thing that really works with this film, is that whilst it still does traps and it still does gore and gruesome horribleness and there's a big twist at the end and the Saw, classic Saw theme plays and you're just sitting there being like, this is a banger. This is a banger. It's still got all the Saw things, but it tries to tell this personal, unique tale of Jigsaw, which is very interesting. Does it fully work? I don't know. It mostly did for me, and I feel like maybe at times towards the end it didn't. So the traps, are they gruesome? Are they grisly? Are they interesting? For the most part, yes. There is moments and traps throughout this film that kind of feel a bit like, I feel like I've kind of seen this before, but in terms of the visceral, disgusting, kind of like can't look away but kind of don't want to watch vibe, I found them to be very, very intense. I've always loved the Saw films, but as a younger man, boy, child, I was a child when I first saw the original Saw films, I always really loved the gore, really loved the traps and the brutality and the intensity, and I kind of got behind them more and I was able to kind of just enjoy them more for the amazing practical elements. Just the gore always looks so good in these films. They never fall down into that CGI route that you don't want for this type of film. But as I've gotten older, not to say I'm that old, I mean, I'm pretty old now. But as a not old man, but an older man than I was, I found myself unable to kind of stomach gore in the same way and love it and appreciate it for what it's doing on a visceral, intense level. I found myself more squeamish and more like, ugh, and I found it harder to stomach these types of films as I've gotten older. And so a lot of these traps really affected me. I found them very intense. But if you are just like a true gore fan, a gore head, someone who just loves, and you still do love all those original films with the traps and all the things, I don't know if these will be the best traps you've ever seen. I'm not sure they'll be the most unique and interesting. I think the story elements and how the characters have to persevere through these moments are what got me engaged most in this film. And so I am curious to see how people find that, because I don't know if these are the best, most interesting traps ever, but I think they work for the film they're telling this time around. An aspect of this film that I think was really well handled was the visuals of the film. The way that the color palette felt, and just that vibe and that dirty, disgusting feeling you get when you're watching a Saw movie. The original Saw film has such a unique, gross, dirty, disgusting, just, you can taste the blood and the gore and the grime. Like, you can feel it like on your skin. Like, you want to have a shower after you watch the first Saw film. But then when you get to, like, say, Jigsaw, it just feels very clean. It feels very modern. It feels a little sterile. And so this film, whilst it still felt kind of clean and polished in terms of how it felt and looked, it still kind of maintained that really grisly, grimy vibe of the original Saw films. It's definitely not as just disgustingly gross where you're like, oh, it's so... like, you want to have a shower, and then after, like, that shower didn't work, I need to have another shower. It's definitely not that level of gross and grimy, but I think it's a really good balance, and kind of combining how the film was transitioned over Saw 1 to Saw 8, being the last film with Jigsaw. And so I feel like this film was a really good balance in between, where it kind of pulls it back a bit, but maybe not fully to that original Saw vibe and feeling. But I think that really, really worked. I really liked that. It felt like a Saw movie. And considering it takes place between 1 and 2, I think that really works to make it feel cohesive in this world. It's kind of insane. It's kind of ridiculous. There are elements towards the end that are so silly and ridiculous. The twist at the end, I saw a mile away. Like, halfway through the film, I'm like, I think I know how this is gonna, like, do, like, I think, like, this will happen, and then the Saw theme will kick off and crank up, and they'll be like, twist, it's this. And it was exactly the same as I expected, and almost a little bit underwhelming just in terms of, like, the brutality and the ferocious horror that is, like, a final twist in Saw can often be, where you're just, like, jaw on the floor like you're a Looney Tunes cartoon, and you're just like, ugh! It didn't have that. I was more just like, this is the best theme to end, like, for a franchise to have this reoccurring element where one theme plays at the end of a movie where a twist kicks off. It's so good. Like, it's so, like, I had goosebumps, but I don't know if the twist is that exciting or interesting or surprising, I suppose. It's not very surprising, but also, who cares? Who cares? I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with it. Like, when it kicked off, I'm like, yeah, this is what I expected, but who cares? It's fun. It's crazy. It's insane. Obviously, when I say fun, I mean completely grotesque and horrible and horrid in every single way. But hey, that's a Saw film. This is Saw 10, Saw X. You know what you're in for.